Yeah, let's try to get you in here, Seth. Let's see if there's a way. If there is a will. Um, okay. We're making it happen.
Hey, okay, cool. So it looks like it can join audio only.
Yeah, fantastic. I still remain utterly befuddled as to the numbers because I know that I got live access before 1,000, and it was very weird because I'd heard that 1,000 number tossed around a lot, and then around 700, TikTok was like, "Oh, do you want to verify yourself?" It's like, okay,
You're like, yeah, I do.
sure, why not? Oh goodness, how are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just handling the cold up here in Idaho. We got kind of seems like Idaho forgot to snow all winter, and when you have a project to do and you do it all the night before? That's what
Yeah.
happened. It's like Idaho looked around and was like, "Oh shoot, winter's almost over. Here's all of the snow all at once."
Yeah, we did that the second week of February here down in Tennessee. We had more snow than we have had in like 50 years. It was
Holy
insane.
crap. What
Yeah,
part of
it
Tennessee are
was
you at?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay, right on. I grew up in Atlanta,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. We dive down there for Dragon Con every year.
Oh, that's awesome. I unfortunately never went to Dragon Con. I regret it when I was living there. I should have.
It's, I imagine it's one of those things that's very easy to not do, especially if you're just not aware of like, were you aware of it or was it something that just
Oh, I
completely
was.
passed you
Yeah, I
by?
had friends that went and stuff. It was mostly budget, the reason I never went. So,
Sure. It's very fair. That is very fair. Aw. That's fun.
yeah.
Um, I we go every year and they have those. I think they're discontinuing them now, but they had like, what do they call them, legacy or eternal or some kind of pass like that was nearly $4,000, but guaranteed you could always, like, you just always have a ticket to Dragon Con every single year. And I was like, oh, if I go for another 20 years the math works out, but if I miss even once it does not work out anymore. Oh man.
Close this and then do another one. You still hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can still hear you. Can you hear me
Okay,
okay?
cool. Yep. I
Nice.
was just saying, is this going to be the same live that y'all do to kick off the?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'll just keep it
Wasn't sure
running.
if you were going to
I
close
was,
this one and Lord Luby would open up a new one, or.
yeah, he and I chatted about
That's
it,
all
and we
right.
were like, we were like, what strategically, the TikTok magic makes more sense, and we figured we just maybe
The
toss it back
TikTok
and forth in
algorithm
terms of
is a
hosting.
fickle thing.
Yes, it is. Hi, Scott. Notorious BLT. What we got? Um, my wife cosplayed the family way in there with her Kakashi photo. And I got my Kakashi hoodie on.
Nice.
Ah, I disappeared. There we go. Mistborn Taylor. Yeah, so the basic game plan is to spend a few minutes around 9 chatting about how we got into the Cosmere, shift into talking about what the Cosmere in a year is, make sure everybody's on board with that, go over the first couple of chapters, and then Scott, 1 second, and then maybe spend the last 15, 20 minutes on like a full spoiler, anything that we want to talk about, kind of the way Sanderson does it, right, with his live streams.
Yeah.
Scott, so he's got a new deal worked out with Audible to where new books, specifically the new Secret Project, will be coming to Audible, which to me indicates book 5 for Stormlight Archive will also come to Audible. My background is the White Sand graphic audios that are on Audible, but those have been on there for quite some time. So, yeah, I really appreciated the marketing firestorm that was Brandon retweeting all the people making a big deal about his deal with Audible. That made me smile quite a bit. Gosh, that's wild to think that somebody could get Amazon to change their mind.
We're live right now.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, sure. Why not?
What?
Yeah, if you can publish on a Friday, you can do anything.
I have a friend who's also published some indie novels as well, and she's been looking to get her books in audiobook format. So Brandon kind of working some, hey, Audible, stop being such a bully thing was actually some really good news for her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just don't see that kind of push being used by creators that often. You know,
I know,
often
that's
it's more
awesome.
Just let it happen.
Well, we saw.
I know, because Brandon easily could have just taken the success, pocketed it all, and not done anything about it, you know. But instead, he immediately took that influence and was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to do some good with this.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely brilliant, right? Like, the connection that I make is to Taylor Swift, who just pushed Ticketmaster to do to help independent artists, right? And then when you've got Brandon doing his live with the Taylor Swift cup right in front of him, and talking about the changes for Audible. I don't know. That was just awesome. That was absolutely
fantastic.
Like hero worthy.
Hey guys.
Hey Lord Loopy.
I'm gonna change my tripod to a better one, that way I'm not quite.
To answer Scott's question, yes, the White Sand books on
please.
Audible, they are great. They don't contain 100% of all the information that you can get from reading, like the omnibus. But if you're like me and reading a comic book is just really hard for you, I just can't sit and read a comic book. I'm not sure why, but the audio versions on Audible are still fantastic to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I just finished White Sands. I did not catch on my. This is my third time through White Sands, but I did not catch that.
Hold on. Is this going to be a spoiler, or what are we going to be talking about? We're trying to stay spoiler free for right now.
I'm talking about our favorite World Hopper. That shows up.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
At the right moment every single time, and we don't see him until the very last words, right? The very, very end.
Yeah.
So he's actually there, especially if they use the same voice actor. He's the minstrel in several scenes.
So maybe I just missed the minstrel then. Maybe it was maybe as I was listening, I didn't pay attention to the minstrel, but I caught it at the very end.
Yeah, it's very obvious at the very end. I think there's at least one little song that he sings in each of the volumes.
Yeah, it's
not like there's no story spoilers there.
And there's no attention drawn to it at all either. It's not like Brandon.
No, it's just
painting
it's just background. It's kind of background noise, right? It's like you wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah, I will say for the graphic audios, you've got to, in my opinion, do headphones. The sound mixing just does not work if you try to do it out of a phone speaker or out of a stereo. I tried that first and I hated them, and then I tried headphones and I went, "Oh, this is doable. Like it's more noisy."
I think what was the more jarring for me was like a lot of the times when they're walking through the desert, the footsteps in the sand.
Yeah.
especially on a louder speaker. That can be it can overwhelm the narration.
So that was pointed out to me on the Discord the second before I started listening to it.
I'm so sorry.
I'd hear crunch, crunch, crunch.
The same curse happened to me. I happened to be reading through Reddit or somewhere about it, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, it was all fine except for the crunching sound of sand." And I went, "Oh no, that's all I'm going to be able to hear."
Like when someone tells you not to think about an elephant, and the first thing you're going to think about is an elephant.
Yeah, I will say also there needed to be better reconciliation. This is not spoilers, but better reconciliation between the narration, the internal monologue, and the dialogue, because there were repetitions that happened that weren't like normal helpful Brandon repetitions. They were just literally the same information that was being conveyed over and over and over again.
Yeah, you kind of had to suspend disbelief in some places, like when they in the graphic audio where they switch to that kind of spooky tone on their voice when it's the internal monologue.
Yeah.
Serious and echoey. You know it's in their head if it's echoey.
Yes.
If I was a character in one of these books, I'd feel very insulted.
Hey.
Say my brain's empty. I just pulled up our Discord on my computer over here.
Guys, I got to tell you, this is really cool. This is my first time being on live.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah?
I love all of you guys.
It's my first time on this account.
I don't, I'm not as cool as y'all. I don't create content like y'all, but man, you're just all amazing.
Well, thank you.
I created one video once, and I don't know. Anyway.
But
I've commented on everybody out here. You're all great.
Like, I just post every day around 5 and just made that part of my habit. Also, I'm ADHD, so scheduling helps a lot. If I say I have to do this by this time, my brain will make me do it.
It is definitely helpful. I try to do at least one a day. There are some bursts where I'm like doing 7 a day, which is not as helpful for the algorithm. But every now and then the burst hits me and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to make that.
I always get like inspiration hits like 2 minutes before a meeting at work. So I have absolutely no time to like make them. And then you write them down. But like my notes are really sporadic. So it'll be like, Adolin, crab dance. And I'm like, what was I thinking about when I wrote down crab dance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a very large Google Keep note that is in the checkbox form that just has thoughts about White Sand, thoughts about Mistborn, because I was doing the What You Missed in Mistborn before we started doing this, and I need to finish Final Empire at some point, but I have to have that, otherwise I'm like, I don't know what I was going to talk about. Who knows? Who can say? Oh, man. Let's see. We got about 3 minutes before the official start time. I guess one thing, too, just to clarify, what do people like to be called, like when we're just talking to each other? Because I think with usernames, things get kind of weird because you don't want to clunk it up with like a name because that gets odd. Seth has his there, obviously, though I think that's for reasons that Seth would prefer didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, I had it, even on my old account, I had it just because I like for people to just know who I am and be able to call me by name.
Yeah, that's fair.
You can call me Zach or Loopy, whichever one you prefer.
Not Lord?
No. Minimum. I don't want to feel like I'm above everybody here.
Oh, but you are.
Bringing up my, what is that? I'm trying to think of the word. Monarchical? No. Monarchy is king.
Oh,
it's been a long
landed. Aristocracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, aristocratic. It does always feel a little odd when it's like Lord Loopy invites you to this last. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's a lord. Ball.
Yes, my lord, absolutely, my lord. Right away, my lord.
Sam, I will toss out something that Loopy/Zach brought to my attention, which is hoopla, and Oh my goodness! So I didn't even have to use a VPN. I just went to, so it's a Cincinnati, Ohio
Yeah.
library website. You ask for a downloadable library card. You put in your information, and it says it's only for like a list of people. And then I put in my actual information and went, "Can I have one?" And they said, "Here you go." And then you take that information and you put it into Hoopla, Hooplah, and then it's like 21 books a month, books, audiobooks, ebooks, movies, music, etc. But that you don't have to wait on things to be available. It's just download.
That's awesome.
It
That's
is
incredible.
so much better than Libby. Because Libby, you're always waiting.
I have 5 accounts for them. And I have one through Ohio, one for LA, one for New York, one for Idaho. So if it's not available in Ohio, I'm like, all right, well, let's see if it's available in New York. I just go through my list until I find the book I want.
That is amazing.
This is
do that
completely
I love
unrelated
that.
to that,
I
but
want
just
to
kind of
read
reminded me.
right now.
My
Whereas
local
if I can
library.
just put it
Oh,
on my
sorry.
CDR, put it on my Libby.
I was just in my local library for some reason. They have a 50 book limit checkout. So you can check out up to 50 books at one time.
Yeah.
that is
Which
a
feels
lot of books.
super excessive.
You know, for when you're having a slow week.
Yeah.
You know, I could see that if like you were doing it for a family, right? And you're like, okay, the kid needs this book and I need this book and
Yeah, or if like
all
you're a
that.
teacher or something.
Yeah.
Those
That's
color
dangerous.
says that's dangerous.
Hey Mo, thanks for stopping in.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for the
Right.
gifts.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Lightning bolts and roses, and feels like a song from The Sound of Music. Lightning bolts, roses, and touch cymbals. It's beautiful.
All right, we hit 9 o'clock. Do we want to go through
Hit 9 o'clock.
ourselves?
Yeah, I'll start off, and then we'll go down the list, and we'll. I think right now, if you'll say like who you are and how you got introduced to Sanderson / the Cosmere, and then once we've all done that, we'll start talking about chapter 1 and 2 of White Sand. And I think also maybe right before we do that, Zach, if you'll just kind of walk us through how Cosmere in a Year came about. So we'll also do that as well.
Okay. So I'm Lord Loopy, or Zach, and the reason I thought of Cosmere in a Year is because originally I was going to do like a mad dash read from August on, and during that time I was having a buddy read with Page Books for Jade City, which is awesome. If you haven't read it, it's Mafia plus magic. But we were reading that, and I'm like, well, you know what? I like Cosmere, and I know that it's kind of threatening to get into because it's like so many books and so many chapters. Like overall, if you were to listen to it nonstop, it would take 3 weeks from beginning to end, and that's if you're not sleeping, just listening back to back. And I was like, well, what if I did a huge buddy read with a bunch of people? And I kind of thought about how many weeks I had. How, like I started looking at the numbers. I'm like, well, if I divide everything out, because I'm also a math nerd. I like doing math. But I kind of added everything out, and I'm like, okay, well, it would be about 2 hours a day if I had to do it, and if I can make this, easy for everybody to kind of hop on who hasn't read or wants to read it, I could do that. So it was one of those things where it just kind of kept on snowballing, where I'm like, well, let's do the math. If I do the math, well, what order would I want to go in? Well, this is the order I want to go in. I wonder if anybody would be interested in it. And I made a video, and everyone was like, you want to make the Cosmere accessible to people, and it's not this massive thing? Yeah, I want to do that. I'm like, all right, so let's do some more legwork. And I did that and made the Discord, and I asked you to be a moderator. I asked Seth to also be a moderator. So it's nice that you guys are here today so we can all kind of talk, and it all got put together, and I'm just really happy with how it all turned out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I'm super excited to see how the reception for this has been. I mean, we've had some people that are super excited. We've got some brand new fans to the Cosmere in the Discord, people who have never even read a single Cosmere book. So it's super exciting to see all of these people jump in, and kind of we're all in the ride together.
I know. I'm so excited for the new followers in the server who haven't read it at all. I think that's so fun that I even made them their own spoiler channel for newcomers because I love to see new readers who are like, is this and this connected? And then the people who have been reading forever are like, oh, that's definitely connected. Or like, I didn't even notice that. So I'm really excited for the newcomers to be in there.
That's awesome. Do you want to go ahead and then kick us off with, you said who you are and then how you got into the Cosmere slash Sanderson?
So I was out for dinner with one of my friends, and he told me he was reading this awesome book about people who eat metal and get superpowers. And I'm like, that sounds really dumb. Like, that's stupid. And he's like, no, read it. I'm like, I'm not going to waste an Audible credit on that. He's like, Zach, you have to read it. I'm like, can I borrow your Audible? And he went, sure. So I listened to it. I'm like, you know what? It's not that stupid. And then I read that.
That's awesome.
And then I quickly outpaced him because I read, after that, I went to Elantris, then Warbreaker, and then Way of Kings and Words of Radiance because that was the year that Oathbringer came out.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
That was how I got into it. And I'm still really thankful to him that he made me listen to a book about people who ate metal and got superpowers.
Yeah.
That is exactly how I got into it too. I had a friend who told me that he was reading this book about people who could eat minerals and get powers from them, and they lived in this world where it was really dark because of ash and stuff. And so for some reason my mind didn't go to people jumping around, flying, pushing on metals. My mind went to, oh, these are mole people that can dig in the ground. That's where my brain went. I decided to give it a try anyway. Thank gosh I was wrong about the mole people. But
Hold on, I want to interject because there is an argument that mole people live on Scadrial. We see them in Arrow 2. I don't want to get too into it. I have a video later where I made a whole thing. I'm like, mole people are on Scadrial, right?
Mole people.
I mean, it could be argued. I don't know how far into spoilers we're getting into, but we saw some underground Scadrians.
Spoilers for the first part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say within the first 2 chapters of White Sand.
Oh, hey, Ryan. Yep. Yeah. So sorry if I gave you that impression too.
Right?
She said she thought I was crazy. I mean, I am, but for other reasons.
Fantastic. Not all Chads.
Hey guys. Yeah, big fans of all y'all. Like I said, you can just call me Chad. So let's see. I got into the Cosmere when Way of Kings first came out. And somebody gave me a book of the Way of Kings. Actually, maybe it was when it was released on paperback. And I'll tell you what, no spoilers, but when Kaladin, it kind of clicks for Kaladin, which is, a good almost halfway into the book. Like you're going through here just trying to figure out how does any of this relate to anything else. When it clicked for Kaladin, that was like a life-changing moment for me. Like as I see everything came into focus in one shot, and it was such an amazing feeling. I was like bouncing off the walls. It was so absolutely cool that I understood this world. I devoured the rest of Way of Kings, and I had to wait the 3 years between between the next books that came out. But so slowly, after about, let's see, when it got to Oathbringer, then I started to branch out into the rest of the Cosmere, and I read Elantris, and I got the Arcanum Unbounded, and it wasn't actually until it was Elantris, and then I did Mistborn just the first book, and Emperor's Soul. Anyway, I kind of bounced around all through there until the whole Cosmere started to come together. I actually didn't like Mistborn. Like, it was my least favorite for a long time. I now love it. I don't have a favorite anymore, but yeah. Anyway, so I have everything. I think and then going out of the Cosmere kind of stuff. The superhero one, and I can't think of the name of right now, and
Reckoners.
Yeah, the Reckoner series and Skyward, all brilliant. Anyway, I just love that love it all.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of his non-Cosmere stuff, unless you count Wheel of Time.
Oh man!
So
that is my
Time.
Talking about Reckoners, I actually, ironically, have not read any of the main series, and I've only read the spin-off book Lux.
Oh, see, Lux is really good, and you can read that by itself, right? You can read that by itself, no problem.
Yeah.
The main Reckoner series, though, is really good. It is really good.
I was talking to him about
Skyward is probably my favorite out of
great.
Cosmere series. It's amazing.
It ended on such a high note too.
Oh yeah. It's great. Now we're just waiting for what is it? Skyward Legacy or Skyward
Legacy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Skyward Legacy series. Yeah. Now, if you want to see some people throw hands waiting on a sequel, talk to the Rhythmatist fans in the audience. And, they will let you know. We will let you know how much I stopped Dan Wells on the Dragonsteel floor and was like, Dan, you know Latin America. When are we getting a Rhythmatist sequel in Latin America? So
I read Rhythmatist. I loved Rhythmatists. I honestly don't get I don't get it. I'm like, if we never get the sequel, honestly, I'm fine. I'd rather expand the Cosmere, but maybe I'm just unappreciative.
I mean, it's such a cliffhanger ending, though. But we are trying to stay on point. Cage, who were you, and how'd you get into the Cosmere?
I'm just a guy on the internet. I came from Wheel of Time. I finished.
Yeah.
When he finished the series, I picked up Mistborn immediately after and never looked back. I do remember having that moment when I realized that the Cosmere was the Cosmere and everything was connected, and just having my mind blown and having to go back and reread everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I feel like nobody talks about that. Is that, like, when these were coming out, he never really came out and said that at first. And as you started to pick up on things, it just kind of, I don't know, it blew my mind.
You feel like the crazy guy with the corkboard and strings, like this guy with the hawk face and the silver hair, I swear.
Yeah. Now there are some, I think Peter Ahlstrom has like an amazing post from back in the day when he was connecting dots and you're like, wait, is this Hoyd the same person? And it's like, wait. Yeah, I mean, it was a not known quantity at the time. I love his intentionality of it, though. I'll jump in. I started with, can I do it? Let's find out. Poof. Who knows? Okay. I started off with, I'm CJ, Cosmere Quandaries, and I started off with technically the Wheel of Time. That's my favorite joke as the worst place / best place to start. As a Brandon Sanderson fan, is just read Gathering Storm, which is the first Wheel of Time book that he got to write. And I think that would just be the funniest way to be like, all right, let's just jump into it. Let's see what this Brandon's guy's got going on. But Mistborn Final Empire was recommended to me by a buddy who was not a Wheel of Time fan, but really loved Sanderson, and so I started reading Final Empire and was hooked from there. And it's been really fun to watch my journey of like learning how to read Brandon, because the first time I read Final Empire, I just caught nothing, none of the twists. Everything was a surprise. Everything was like, who knows? I don't know what's going on. This is fun. Wow, okay, that happened. And then, now doing rereads and doing the What You Missed in Mistborn series, seeing all of those pieces just laid out right there in front of me has been really cool. And Carl, absolutely, it should scare you, but it should scare you with how awesome it will be. The Wheel of Time is a great ride.
Don't let people scare you with the slog. There's no slog. They just don't like.
There's only a slog if you had to live through it, right? If you had to wait 3 years and you got Crossroads of Twilight, sure. And you knew you had to wait another 3 years after that.
I don't like the.
I don't know. I got so lost.
Interlude.
Like about 6. Yeah, I totally agree with the slog. Like I went through those. Like I listened to the audiobooks on all of them, and you just get like, where is this going? Like 6, 7, 8 are like,
totally agree with Chad.
What is this going to go? What is happening here?
Oh yeah, I only read Wheel of Time because I started with Sanderson and I read most of the Cosmere, and like, you know, I had listened to Sanderson saying that like the Wheel of Time was those were the books that made him want to be an author, right? That's what really got him super excited about reading and writing. And so I was like, oh, well, if it was that impactful to him, I have to. And don't get me wrong, the Wheel of Time is a work of art. It is a tapestry, right? It is beautiful, it is intricate, but man, I don't know if I'll ever reread it just because it was such a slog for me to get through.
Yeah,
I can appreciate it looking at the entire big picture, but going through each chapter individually again, I don't know if I could do it, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't. Like the further I get away from that, the happier I feel with my mental health. Like it's just I can't do it again.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't read it like 4 more times.
I will say I love doing a reread and seeing the boys as boys again, and seeing the little children in their innocence, and like just the feel of where they're going. I've not done a full reread, I will concede that, and I will also concede there were times where my eye kind of glanced across the page a little bit to get past some things, but I loved it, and I loved the journey. And it embodies that journey before destination mindset too. So
I just love Rand's art.
Now I love the
farmer.
I love the series that Amazon is putting out. That's fantastic. I love watching that.
I couldn't go past season 2.
I think
I couldn't go past the first 5 minutes of season 2.
If you haven't yet, watch Sanderson, Daniel Green, and Matt, I don't remember his last name, from the Dusty Wheel. Watch the last episode of season 2. It's on YouTube somewhere. And that is wonderful to watch because you can tell Sanderson, the writer, is like, what is happening? Like, you can enjoy, he appreciates parts of it, but he definitely has some critiques that I wish they had listened to in the right. Matt Hatch, thank you, Joshua. I knew.
Oh man, yeah. I wish they would have listened to his critiques. He had some really good information, and considering he literally was co-author of the series, I wish they would have given him more credit and more weight to what he was suggesting. I think the whole show would have been a million times better.
Right. Okay.
All
We're gonna
right.
hop into the chapters.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. I was just about to say, let's stop being a Wheel of Time critique TikTok live for a few minutes, and maybe let's cycle through some different thoughts about chapter 1 and 2 of White Sand. Zach, do you want to kick us off?
Yep. Let me grab my journal really quick. I got a fancy journal for this.
I love it. I love it.
I'm even annotating the pages at the top so I know where I'm at. So for chapter 1, my thoughts were Kenton's dad's a real jerk. Just he embodies the kind of person where it's like, enjoy the son you have and not the one you wish you had. That kind of aggravation of like trying to push something on your son and not thinking he's enough. And then I took a note because I like the fact, we talked about it earlier in the Discord, but about how 1 hour is 100 minutes, but they have 25 hours in a day. And that really aggravated my math brain. I don't like numbers.
And then the omnibus changes it. So now it's a 24-hour day, but it's 90-minute hours and there's 15 of them.
Yeah, that's annoying.
So it's like it just
But
the
if the
omnibus
planet's
adds a
not,
whole new.
but if the planet's not rotating, does it really matter? Like,
The moons. It keeps track
The
of the
moons
moons.
rotate.
okay, yeah, I guess that makes. Also, like, I don't know. I really want to know what the flat earthers would make of a planet that doesn't rotate.
Where's Eamon?
You would, yeah, right. One would presume you could then at least prove there were two sides to the planet. Maybe not that it wasn't flat, but there were at least like, hey, one side the sun hits and one side the sun doesn't hit. Um,
I'm also curious to how do the moons rotate if there's no gravity. Well, I mean, obviously there's gravity, but gravity comes from rotation.
I think so. There is like a massive sun, and then there's another sun. No, there's a regular sun on day side, and then there's like a massive sun on dark side. But the planet is like right in the middle, so it's getting pulled equally, and that's why it doesn't turn. So I think the combined gravity keeps the planet in place. I'm not good with space.
Something like that. We can also always just say investiture, right?
yeah.
Because investiture has mass, and so that could be where the gravity's coming from too. But
It
I like
spins
the
into
two
the
sun
common
explanation better, personally.
Yeah, it spins to the time you told it to. Which, by the way, I underlined. Kind of. I don't know. Would we consider shard spoilers?
So I was gonna say maybe not naming a shard since we can do like a full spoiler later.
Well, we were going to say the end of it for spoilers, so I'll bring that up at the end of the live.
Okay. I mean, I think in that first chapter, if you start hearing something called the Sand Lord, you start wondering, okay, is that an actual being that exists somewhere? Are we going to see the Sand Lord at some point, or is that more of a curse type thing that happens? I think we all learned our lesson after a certain person who told a lot of stories in one of the books about religions. You're like, wait, should I actually be paying attention to those?
Oh, awesome. Josh said he shared the Ars Arcanum page in the Discord that has information about that. So everybody watching, if you're not in the Discord, we have a Discord link. I think Lord Loopy has it in his bio, I think.
It's in my link tree.
So go check that out. Join the Discord. We do tons of discussions about where we're at in the books and other stuff. We do keep things spoiler free based on the channel, so just watch which channel you're in if you're talking spoiler topics.
Yeah. But super newbie friendly, super welcoming to people who have read it 0 times and people who have read it all at least once, which I think we are all in that camp. Is that right?
Yes.
I've read okay. What about unpublished things? Has anybody here read any of the Aether of Night, Mistborn Prime, any of those things?
I have not read anything unpublished.
I'm the same way. And I also try to stay away from Words of Brandon a lot because I feel like, I don't know, a lot of times he'll say something, but if it's not on paper later on, he'll be like, well, I can kind of walk that back.
Right, so, and Brandon's been very open about saying that Words of Brandon are not canon. Nothing's canon until it's printed in a book.
Right.
Yeah. Or the omnibus, apparently. as we get through, as we talk about some differences.
I think we can throw the blame on Dynamite for that, though, not Brandon.
Oh my gosh. I didn't use the picture, but I had one from the Kindle of the omnibus I was almost going to use as my background, but it showed the reviews as 2.9 stars. And I was just Josh, actually, yes, I do think prose version of White Sand, if that happens, would probably become the true canon, version of events and magic. And all that.
100%.
But yeah, 2.9 stars is what Amazon has the omnibus listed as. And I'm just like, that's tragic. That is so awful. Seth, any observations, thoughts from chapter 1 or chapter 2?
I'll be totally honest. I didn't read it today. I'm going to read it before I go to bed tonight. So,
okay, that's fair.
As far as specific chapters, no, I don't have any insights on that.
I
totally
mean,
fair.
most of chapter one, I feel, is just like displaying that the Mastrals are just arrogant. Like the
Yeah.
whole trial, you see him running, and one of the lines was literally they were talking to Kenton's dad, who I cannot think of the name of right now, but they're like, it was when he was in the pit with the giant crab, which Sanderson loves.
I was like, not chasm fiend.
And they're like, your son will die, and he's like, and it's like, you all are just so arrogant. Um, but yeah, one thing that I
That
absolutely love is that Kenton is so adaptive with his one ribbon. That he uses it so well, and then he has the sword, and everyone scoffs at it. But it's like, well, did any of you kill the giant crab monster?
yeah, no,
They're
because
like, no,
you
we
weren't
didn't,
supposed
because you're
to,
not supposed
apparently.
to.
I
But nobody
absolutely
tells you
love
that. Oh, that
that.
is like classic. Oh, it's like Lockhart levels of I'm so mad on behalf of this character.
Yes.
I mean, and
I
that's such
love
an
that
easy
message
rule
that
that
White
they could have
Sands
put in.
has. Sorry, go ahead.
They could have just said, "Don't kill anything during this trial.
Right.
Anything. Not a scorpion,
But
not a bug. Like that could have been one of the rules."
I
And
think
then
the thing
the
is they didn't expect anybody to be able to, and then Kenton comes in, everybody's underestimating him, and there's that message in like in White Sands of it's not about raw power, it's about how you use what's given to you, and he just subverts all expectations and resets what it means to be a Sandmaster.
right. And like
Yeah,
even with the arrogance, I feel like if another Sandmaster had killed it with sand, it wouldn't have been a problem. They would have been lauded, like, "Oh my gosh, you did this! You're amazing." But because Kenton did it with a sword, it's a bad thing.
Bingo.
yeah. Defiance as a theme is really interesting in this book because and I think not getting into spoilers, but it's weird when it seems like a virtue for the character, but also traditionally it's not in fantasy. Like you're not supposed to be the like arrogance, defiance, those kinds of things. And so it's really tricky trying to figure out, especially with the nature of the divine for this particular planet. It's weird trying to figure out when is it a good thing and when is it a bad thing. And we definitely have things to talk about in the last 15 minutes or so in terms of like full Cosmere spoilers about that. Yeah, did you pick up on the one ribbon being particularly helpful for Kenton and him being really good with it? Because I think it got said about 55 times in 45 minutes of text, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I get it. He can use one ribbon really well. I understand.
If you missed it, you heard it here first. Kenton is really good with one ribbon.
What I think about is that in world, people are just really perplexed and confused by that as well. So I feel like it makes sense for it to keep coming back up a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. If you saw like a one-legged bullfighter just decimating a bull, you'd be like, this guy only has one leg and he can do this? I can see your point there.
Yeah. I always watch out for curses too. I caught the 100 Idiots, which I'm still not sure what exactly that reference is or what that's supposed to reference, but
That's a Void
interesting
reference.
that gets brought up.
Yeah, I have that for spoilers at the end.
Okay.
But that's all I really had for the first chapter was just kind of them running the path and them displaying how arrogant the Sandmasterals were.
I think we can. I had the noting the sand taking the water from your body being a little bit different than what we normally see in terms of magic for the Cosmere. Because usually it's investiture that we're having to provide in some way or use or access or a key that accesses the spiritual realm. So obviously, if this is your first time reading through, be watching, be trying to figure out how does the magic work here, because the Sandmaster seems to be giving the water out of his own body to the sand in some way, and that's pretty interesting from a magical system perspective.
On that note,
Seth has a very cool theory on that.
Oh yeah, and I'm not the only one that has the theory. I mean, I've seen people on the internet point this out, but I am 100% convinced that White Sands and like the practice of it is a form of aether. It's another type of aether. Whether or not it's the bone aether that's mentioned in Tress of the Emerald Sea or not is, I don't know if it is or not, but I think it's definitely at least a branch off of some sort of aether type magic.
That was basically my exact question.
Connected to that, it's really interesting because we know that, and this is no way a story spoiler. We know that the Aethers on some worlds seem to have a particular relationship. The Aethers on other worlds, it's just anybody who can provide the water and enough of it gets to use it. Here, it's somewhere in the middle because Darksiders are expected. There's the note, in these first couple of chapters, the wife was from Darkside. No Sandmaster children of the no children of the Sandmaster and the Darksider woman had been able to use Sand Mastery, which is interesting because usually in the Cosmere it's either DNA or it's relationship,
Location,
and so
yeah.
here it's location, or it's weird that you have this. Maybe it has an effect, maybe not. Kind of aspect of how to use the magic.
Right.
Actually, no. I was going to say something more about Aether, but I guess I'll save that for the spoiler part because it might be considered spoiler.
So my favorite thing about having the different sides and the dark side not being able to access the magic and focus more on the technology side, I think that's giving us a kind of cool preview of stuff we're going to see. I'm only on chapter 2. It's my first time going through, so I don't know how much that's going into it, but like just the parallels on other planets as they progress down their own timelines. I think the magic versus technology question is going to be really awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm so excited for like Mistborn Era 3. I remember at Dragonsteel 2022, one of the best panels of the whole convention was one that was actually kind of headed up by Daniel Green, and it was technology on Scadrial, and it was a discussion on where that's going to go. And there were some way cool discussions on that and like how, and kind of just on every world in the Cosmere, how the commodification of magic is going to affect the advancement of technology and the other way around as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see Darkseid has the pistols. There's a reference to 500 years that I wrote down. I also noted it's interesting we have another like chasing of a fiance plot that seems to come up a lot in Sanderson's works in some form or fashion. People just can't be betrothed and like with each other. They've got to be like following or that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Boring people are.
Yeah, for real.
Do we want to move on to chapter 2?
Oh yeah, I was including chapter 2 in this too. I apologize if that wasn't clear.
I love chapter
2. I like
2.
what Carl just said.
What'd he say?
He said, could it make it a parasitic aether since it draws the water from the Sandmaster?
Yeah, that'd be really
It
cool.
could be. That's a cool theory.
Chapter 2 opens up on Chris waking up and walking outside and realizing that it's really bright out. So I absolutely love the fact that she keeps being called Duchess, just because it's kind of underlining the fact that she is nobility, and I feel like she comes with such kind of, and this isn't a slight on her, I absolutely love Chris, but she is kind of arrogant for the first few chapters in this book. And it's like you can kind of see that royalty thinking that she should 100% get what she wants, and then just seeing the defiance of people just not caring.
Yeah.
Is Ars Arcanum that it is mentioning that considered spoiler, or should I hold that?
Are you talking about like that's in the book, like what Joffrey has shared?
No, I mean like the author of the Ars Arcanum.
Oh,
I think for people who have never read anything, we should probably hold that back. I think
Okay, sounds good.
I know we're trying to keep it to about at least I'm trying to keep it to about an hour tonight. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's about as late as I can stay up.
That's fair.
So there's a lot in chapter 2, but I have a lot of spoiler stuff in here too. just like the world building for Darkseid that we don't really get a big payoff. Like that Darkseid, it was mentioned that Darkseid has been plotted really well, and they know where everything is. But Dayside is like a complete different thing to them. According to them, they've never been to Dayside. They don't know that much about it except for like 500-year-old texts and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you get Chris going into Dayside, and like kind of came off like kind of colonialist because she's like, "Oh, I am this educated woman, and I'm blah blah blah," and then she gets in there and has the culture shock because she's expecting to be stupid, but then they have like because they have bows and arrows opposed to pistols.
Yeah.
But then she doesn't. But then she's going there for magical stuff. It's like you don't make that connection that maybe the magic is the weapon opposed to pistols. I also didn't like the fact that when they get there, they find out that the language that they've studied is the like clergy text.
Yeah.
And not like basic common. And then their first instinct is like, well, if we have the clergy text, we'll just say that you're going to go to hell if you don't listen to us. Again, I didn't really like that.
Oh, I missed that 100. I was too busy feeling very awkward at the first merchant they talked to that speaks in like this weird half step. You want food, like that this very stereotypical. Like I'm not sure I like that performance. What is happening here? This is weird.
Right.
It definitely made me raise the question of how is his mom a Darksider if the Darksiders haven't been there in 500 years?
Chris certainly thinks they haven't, right? So I think that's a piece to the puzzle, and more of that comes out as the book goes on. But yeah, definitely should be a question as how is that possible?
That was all I really had for Chris. Just kind of that culture shock and realizing that maybe she's not as awesome as she thinks she is. And then we get back to the Kenton because he's been saved from the trial. And I underlined this bed stuffed with sand. It sounds super uncomfortable. Like it would almost be a water.
Yeah, that sounds hard.
Like I've fallen asleep on a beach before, and like you wake up and your back hurts. And then so then we get to Dryle, and him being this guy who's like, I'm going to sell my services, and it just makes him an immediate villain. It's like it's not awful to want to do something like that. Maybe don't be mercenaries, but you should take care of what is it, Lawsand. Yeah. And then he gets the demotion, which I think is crazy because if you have somebody that's that powerful, and I can't do spoilers. If you have somebody that powerful, you either imprison them or you kill them. You don't take away their power and say, "Well, just go stand here, you'll be fine."
I don't know. The military does that all the time to people, so
I would say the military is probably better organized than the Sandmasterals, who seem very laissez-faire about almost everything.
Yeah, it's weird that they seem to have a lot of autonomy, and I think that word gets used a few times, even in these first couple of chapters. And it's all about like self-governance, and except for that specific hierarchy of the Mastrals on top, and except for we don't sell our services, we don't do things for other people, kind of thing, which is such a weird. Was that? Yeah, I think. Well, that felt very non-interventionist, right? Like the Bayonne, specifically Bayonne, talking about needing to keep the tech secret, and like how important it was to the Empire that didn't get out, and those kinds of things. That felt like some pretty interesting foreshadowing for this planet's involvement in future events in the Cosmere and how technology spreads or doesn't spread.
Yeah. I mean, I like this planet for a lot of reasons. I've read both the actual comic book and this. If you haven't read the comic book, I suggest you pick up some of the stuff online just to look at the pictures, because the pictures of it is just gorgeous. But yeah, I 100% agree that this planet seems very odd because they're playing, like, everybody plays everything so close to the chest. It doesn't seem to be a lot of, openness. After we meet Dryle, we go to the ceremony, and this one was annoying because they call Kenton up, and he's like, "Here, I'll put you in underfed." And Kenton's like, "No, I don't want underfed," even though he's arguing with himself, like, "What's wrong with underfed? It's fine." But he's so. And then his dad's like, "I did this for a reason. They're all going to think I'm picking you for favorites now, and you're screwed." And he's like, just talk to him. Just say, "Look, hold it back and be like, look, son, you're amazing, and I love you." But they're not going to take you seriously because you only have, I don't know if we mentioned it, but you only have one ribbon. So that's kind of a big deal.
Definitely feels like a conversation they could have had beforehand.
Like, I'll make you an underfin, and you can find a good life as an underfin where people respect you. But instead, he just decided, I'm not going to tell him anything. I'm going to let him almost die, proving himself. And then when he doesn't die, I'm going to give him what he wants with a backhanded compliment at the same time. It's like, I feel like a lot of issues in this first part is like, if you talk to each other, you can probably figure this out.
What's up with bad
Totally
dads
fair.
in the Cosmere, huh?
Tress's dad is the only good dad.
That's true. He is a
Cosmere
rock star.
has bad dads the same way Disney has dead moms.
To be fair, there's a good amount of dead moms in the Cosmere too.
Yeah. On that note, do we want to spend the last 19 minutes with a full spoiler warning? Hey, if you're in the chat, if you're here with us, we've loved having you. But if you've not read, everything in the Cosmere is no longer a safe place.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good. The last things I have is going to take up about the last 4 minutes. And it's just that you have the people come in, I can't think of the faith, the ones who hate the Sandman.
Curtsians, right?
Yes.
Curtsians.
The Curtsians come in, and you see how dysfunctional the Sandmasters are because they can't fight. Like, we know something happened because they're all getting dehydrated, but even before that, they're not organized. They're just like breaking off by themselves. But then you have Kenton, who has, I think by this point it's been mentioned that he's gone to the tower, right? Yeah, because it talks about how he learned how to use his sword at the tower. So, he goes and he immediately starts organizing people. Like, hey, you fight with this group, you fight with this group. Don't overmasteral and stay close to each other. And then you have full-grown adults like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, yeah, at some point you would think with these people who have these powers would sit down and be like, hey, maybe we should learn how to use this in a way that's helpful for everybody. And then
that just goes more along the same lines that we were talking about. It's the arrogance of the Sandmasters, right? That's their downfall. When I was reading through White Sands, I kind of kept thinking similar to like the Jedi in Star Wars, right? It's that arrogance, it's that complacency and comfort with their level of power that they've stopped caring really about anybody outside of their ranks.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good point.
So the dehydration, that's definitely was the water at the beginning of the ceremony, right?
Now, Seth, do you remember the whole? You're about to read it again. Do you want us to spoil where things are going? Just to.
Oh yeah, I mean I've read it all before.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Cool.
It
was a funny trick.
Omnibus. I just did the graphic audios. Sorry, my kid is psycho.
It's all good.
It's the bowl though,
stuff,
which is the trick.
I'm not opposed to like just being told what's in the omnibus because I know most of it anyways.
And then my last note, and this is exactly what I wrote down. Paxton may be a jerk, but he is definitely strong.
Yes.
He
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Was.
I did not remember the scale when they mentioned like thousands of arrows or something at some point. I was like, wait a minute, whoa, that is a much bigger fight than I remember this being.
Now that we're at 45, he did that without even having a bridge.
It's true. It's true. I really liked the quote. We are many, but with this one bowl, we are one body, or something to that effect. Especially given autonomy and her avatars going everywhere throughout the Cosmere. It really felt like that we had some threads being pulled there of like you should, and that's what's so weird about autonomy. Like you should be autonomous, but not autonomous from me. And like Eric has a lot of that coming up in his story. I
Eric
think,
absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Eric. Just his everything. What a lot of spoilers I noticed in this just kind of cuts over to Stormlight, like a lot. Like there's the 5 spheres of the run, and I know it probably isn't, but my first thought when I hear spheres is like, oh, how do they have Stormlight?
Oh, sure.
Like that was my first.
What do we think that that sphere just got left behind? That never gets addressed. Like that is a thread that just hangs in this book, and no one ever mentions it ever again.
I had completely forgotten about that. That went straight over my head.
They brought it up that it was probably left by someone else. Actually, they said specifically it was his friend, probably.
Right, but when Sanderson says that as the first thought, you're like, okay, it's not that. What is it actually? Like
that's fair.
Usually the first idea is not correct.
Like we know that they have a few of them because they can leave multiples, but
yeah,
like it doesn't seem like there's a lot of them, and we don't hear anything else about a sphere for the rest of the book.
Yeah. Just go on. A couple of things in the chat. Joshua, absolutely. I think Wheel of Time, the Aes Sedai, 100% an inspiration for the Sandmasters. Jason, the Cosmere in a year is us crazy Cosmere fans reading through every book in Brandon Sanderson's Connected Universe before Wind and Truth, the 5th Stormlight Archive book, comes out in December. And then Carl...
Yeah, we have a Discord. You should absolutely come join it, Jason. Go check out Lord Loopy's account. He's got a link in his bio. Come chat with us, hang out, discuss it. We want you there.
Also, if you're hesitant to jump into the whole thing, I have it broken down by book. So if you only want to look through and be like, well, this book sounds more my speed, check it out. You know, you can stick with us through that. And then if you want to keep going, you can. Or if it's not for you, completely understand.
Zach, the level of effort you put into this is so impressive. I am blown away by how cleanly and like just how well you have it laid out, spread out, and organized. I'm very impressed.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that's kind of funny. I had my vacation time goes off the fiscal year, so I have to use all my vacation time by the end of March, and I had 4 days to burn. So I'm like, I'll just take them. I'll take a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. And then I spent half the day Thursday and most of the day Friday doing the math and getting everything ready. So the thing is, it wasn't hard. It was just tedious because I'm going through and I'm adding every single counter that's on the like the audiobooks. I'm like, okay, this is 10 minutes. This is 20. This is 30. Did I count that 10? Time to go back and read that.
Sure.
And the worst part was I got to the end and I realized I did the math wrong halfway through the year. So I had to cut back halfway to like, it was probably in Yumi that I did the math wrong. And I just had to redo it all. That wasn't a big, it was fun. Again, my brain likes to work with math, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, I love doing it. I wanted to make it more accessible to people, and I really wanted to have this kind of, I love the community we already have. So just kind of building on that any way I can, I think is a lot of fun.
And it's a mostly chronological read, which is fun as well, being able to kind of go forward,
Yeah,
I
right?
think it's pretty much it is chronological as far as to the best of our knowledge, isn't it?
everything except for the secret projects. I put them before Stormlight, so we were reading Stormlight going into Wind and Truth.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So,
And then Sunlit Man, we bumped to the back.
yeah, Tress and
Which
Unity.
is fair.
Yeah, it
For me,
goes-
I really appreciate that it's going to make me slow down. Going, it's with the exception of White Sands, they're all going to be rereads for me. But I feel like if I'm only doing what you lay out, that I'll pick up on more because like I typically will throw something on like 1.8 and then just do other things. Whereas this, I can kind of slow down and focus on things more.
I'm looking at the list here. Yeah, so after so we have Shadow of Silence is where Stormlight Archive should be, but then we go and instead of that we go into Era 2 of Mistborn. Then we have Six of the Dusk, because that kind of I put that there, even though I know it's the latest. It kind of introduces space travel into the Cosmere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Softer than like Tress and Yumi does, because that's like, and boom, we're in space. Like I like 6 because it's like, okay, there are people coming from different planets now. This technology's here, but not everybody's on the same level. And then you get
Have y'all
to
read the sixth sequel?
Huh?
Have y'all read the sequel to Six of the Dusk, or at least the parts that are out?
I have not.
It's actually really good.
It is. It's very exciting.
It's
to
very,
see the magic
very
used
exciting.
in that way.
There is 2 words that I really want to say, but I will let you experience them for yourself.
I will put that on there. That's probably what I'm going to read.
Sounds like CJ knows what the 2 words I want to say are.
I'm guessing what the 2 words are.
Airsick Lowlander?
No, that's not it. But those are good ones.
Those are good words.
My next note I made for chapter 2 is the Sandmastrals dress all in white, and my first thought was like, oh, that could carry over to Stormlight like Seth, but then I remembered the Pershindi put him all in white.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
probably not.
I
Next
don't know.
one
I mean,
have
definitely
is-
could be some crossover stuff. I mean, there definitely could be some cultural influences due to world hopping.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sanderson loves his crabs. I mentioned that.
Yeah, I had never thought about that before, Josh, but now I do want to see Sandling versus Chasm Fiend.
Right. You gotta have that in Silverlight, right? Like there's basically chicken matches, but it's just Xeno creatures from across the Cosmere being pitted against each other illegally. Oh, it's wild.
I love that this is the introduction of Chris, because I love Chris as a
Yeah.
world.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say earlier. Is I just love how you can see where she started, and you can see that that inquisitive nature that she has, and how she wants to find out all the secrets. I desperately want to see at some point between this Chris that we see in the books or in White Sands, sometime between this and when she becomes the immortal Cosmere-wide forefront scholar of investiture. I want to see the transition between the 2.
Yes. And again, like, you see her so arrogant and close. I don't want to
Yes.
say close, but like almost close.
Oh yeah, no, I think she says Sand Mastery doesn't exist. She's just
super
like certain,
close-minded,
like
she's
that
super
can't
arrogant.
possibly exist.
She comes in with this absolutely, we are the only people that are correct and everybody else is basically Neanderthals, right? That's basically the mentality she has. And so going from that to the author of the Ars Arcanum, that's so cool.
And just like, I love it so much. And like, just how like, the next time we see her chronologically is Secret History, which is like, it's a decent size jump. I want to
That's a
say
huge jump.
a couple thousand years.
Yeah.
Depending on whether or not having a giant sun of investiture affects your experience of time, I suppose. That's what I want to know. Cell and Taldane both have very interesting investiture bubbles. Really,
Well,
really
and
close.
how often is she using like time dilation kind of stuff to skip, not time travel, but basically just like skip forward, right? So how much of that time is she actually experiencing?
How many
And,
DEUs does she usually have on her?
well, and Joshua, I agree with you, and I think that's probably a weird thing for the omnibus because she is exceedingly skeptical of sand magic. She's like, that can't possibly be real. But if the omnibus is talking about like magic tattoos, it's like, no, wait a minute. You know magic is real, Ethan. Like, what is going on? Why is magic with regard to sand such a crazy thing? I don't
Are you
know.
talking about sky marks?
Because only their magic can be
Yes.
real.
You're probably not
Duh.
wrong.
From where I live.
Obviously.
Joshua says, well, for them, it's science.
Yeah.
Oh, but see, that's a good
Oh,
transition though,
man.
because she, once she starts to see the ins and outs of how sand mastery works, and she realizes that it's the fungus that's recharged by the sun, then it
Yeah.
becomes science in her head. It stops being this mystical impossibility, and it becomes scientific.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it earlier, but that was maybe my small headcanon as to why their beds would be a little more comfortable, as if there's like a little lichen all over the sand. It's like maybe it's like not as like hard, or it's not as bad.
Just full of mushrooms.
Full of mushrooms.
One small thing I want to do, it's at the beginning of chapter 2, but it bugs me and I don't understand. Or at the beginning of chapter 3, it says that Kenton wakes up in sand. And like, I've been to the beach, I've buried my feet in sand, and I've gotten blisters. So how is he just under there for hours and not cooking?
It's special sand, right? It's the sand that like the Mastral that Paxton covered him in, right? So that's like it's all fine. It's good. It's cool. Don't worry about the fact that they literally cook their meat on the sand. Like later they say, why would we need fire? We just put stuff on the sand and the sun cooks it.
But meanwhile, he's passed out under the sand.
That's a real thing, though.
It's totally a real thing. Yeah.
That's another thing that drives me crazy. And the graphic audio that I didn't notice, it says that it is nighttime, and then it has an owl hoot. And I'm like, why are there owls on the planet?
It's like chickens. Maybe they call all their birds owls. That would be distracting and frustrating, but would be amazing if that just happened regularly throughout the Cosmere. They just had a thing. Maybe, Joshua, I didn't pay super close attention. They were just in a restaurant, and they were somewhere, and Kenton was like, why would we need fire? We just put it out in the sand, and it cooks it. But it might be drying it out. I don't know.
Doesn't Chris go with him when he goes out to talk to, not the admiral, the general?
Yeah, the army dude. Mm-hmm.
I think that's when they're cooking, because she's like, where's the food? I don't know for sure, but I think that's where they talk about it.
I know the fire comes up really late, because that was like part of her realization of, oh, y'all's technology is so different. Tchaikovsky has a really good sci-fi series, like totally jumping the shark here, but Tchaikovsky has a series about like sentient spiders that take over a planet, and they never develop the wheel because like they don't need wheels to move around because they move around on webs. So it's really interesting to think about like technology trees, like in Civilization, where you just, thank you, Joshua, I agree, where like you just don't ever get a particular early on thing. It's like, oh yeah, we got really far, but we never needed fire. We never needed the wheel. Like, it's interesting.
But yeah, I think I like this book. I don't know if I'd say it's the best introduction to the Cosmere, but I think it's fun.
Yeah. It is quick. It is getting you used to the like world building, the like the Sanderlanche that happens at a certain point, the feel of Sanderson, if not Sanderson himself.
Right.
Certainly.
It
would definitely not be the one I'd recommend to to someone as their very first time through, but it's a great way to say, okay, where does the Cosmere start?
I feel like most people say Mistborn. What's the next one? Elantris is the next one. I think that's a much better introduction. I will say for Sanderson, it's a bit basic.
Yeah.
As far as like how everything plays out. But then after Elantris, we get to my favorite story in the Cosmere, and that's Emperor Soul. I love Emperor Soul.
Yeah. Tress makes a really good argument for if you want that whimsical, occasional introspection, like intense, but also the action adventure. Tress and Emperor Soul are like my two favorite starts to the Cosmere. If you just want to get an idea for what is this guy like, because Emperor Soul, I mean, it's a bottle episode. Like you're in, you're out, and you get a feel for just wonderful writing.
Emperor Soul has 2 days on it. I think it's like 3 hours in total.
Yeah, it's not a long book at all.
I felt like that was the one thing that tripped me up with some of these novellas. They're like 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'm like, do I really want to try and split hairs on 2 hours and 10 minutes? So like, if it's, my rule was for the most part, if it's in Arcanum Unbounded, it's getting 1 day to read. Unless it's like Edge Dancer or Secret History or Emperor Soul. And Emperor Soul barely got 2 days. But I'm like, it's big enough.
Well, in Edge Dancer, you get to cheat a little bit because isn't the first portion of that just copy paste out of Words of Radiance, right? It's like did they include that in the Arcanum Unbounded? I just can't remember.
Not in the Arcanum.
How they did that. Okay.
Because it starts off with her walking and Wendy going, "Hey, why are we leaving? They were so nice to us." And she's like, "Yeah, that's the problem. They were too nice to us."
Yeah, and we get our first reference to Lift's growing womanhood, I think, in that intro as well, right? Because she's not supposed to change, but she's changing.
I love Lift so much, and like
I get so sad with the Lift hate. It makes me very sad.
Like, not to get too deep, but I connect with her because I lost both my parents. I don't want to say super young, but like 21. So like that kind of loss of a parent and just being like, well, what am I supposed to, like, I get that and I love her for it. Because like that, like, I feel like everybody has a character in Stormlight where it's like, oh, this reflects my issues very well. And that's one that reflects me. Like, I love her. And I love Adolin because he's so awesome.
Yeah. I think we will bawl when we get Lift's background at in not interludes, but her background chapters in the back half. Because I mean, it has to be tragic. I mean, to wish to not change, to barely remember your mom. CS Collar. I mean, it would have to be an awful journey to get to that destination.
And then I love that she uses Lifelight, not Stormlight, because I feel like that's because she's one of the people we know is Era 2, right?
Yes.
It's her who
relatively early. Lift, Renarin, Yasna, Taln, Shalash, and wait, her, Renarin, Taln, Yasna. Oh yeah, that's 5. Her, Renarin, Taln, Yasna, Shalash.
Right.
Yeah, that's 5.
Well, I love talking about this, but I think it's time for me to hop off.
That is fair. I have a long drive ahead of me before work in the morning as well, so I should do the same.
I'm getting up at 5, and the time change is already going to mess with me.
Yes, absolutely. And the kids, I'm sure, as well, right? I've got mine upstairs.
I only got one, so it's not too bad for me.
That's fair.
So we can do zone parenting. If she's in my zone, I got her. If she's in her zone, she's got her.
Amen to that. Yep, absolutely.
But all right, I'll see y'all later.
See ya.